and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. I'm going to start off today by answering a question that somebody gave me at the close, I think, of last segment's show, and it has to do with timing. And we've been working with timing anyway, and I've been explaining to you time signatures and key signatures and how to count time, excuse me, and all of that sort of thing. So let me review a little bit, then I'll explain the question and give the answer. We know that this is the time signature. If we go to this chart here, this is a time signature. And it has a treble clef. This is the clef that most woodwinds play. The bass recorders, some of them play bass as well, but this is a treble clef. And we have this 4 on top of 4. And we know that the top number means how many beats there are to a measure. And the fourth, the 4 underneath, or the number underneath, explains what kind of note gets 1 beat. And since this is a 4, it's a quarter. So there's 4 beats to the measure, and a quarter note gets 1 beat. Now, since this is a whole note right here, this is a whole note. A whole note is a circle, and it's clear. There's no coloration to it. There's no stem. There's no flag. It's just clear. And if it is the only note in a measure, that it is worth what the time signature says it's worth, basically 4 beats. 4 beats to the measure, a whole note, worth also 4 beats. This is a 4th rest. This rest, which comes down from the 4th line of the staff, 1, 2, 3, 4, you count from bottom up. That's a whole rest, and that's also worth 4 beats. It'll be the only rest in the measure. That'll be the only note in the measure. So they're both worth 4 beats. Now, if my time signature says 3/4, then this would be 3 beats to a measure, the quarter note getting 1 beat. So this whole note is going to be worth 3 beats. This rest is going to be 3 beats. If I have something like 2/4 time, then this whole note is only worth 2 beats because there's only 2 beats to the measure. And a quarter note, once again, gets 1 beat. And this rest also is only worth 2 beats. So what I did last time, just to get things a little interesting, was I started with 16/4 time. Now, according to 16/4, there are 16 beats to the measure. So this whole note is actually worth 16 beats. And this rest, also being a whole rest, is also worth 16 beats. And the quarter note gets 1 beat. Well, what about this line here? I've got this whole note, and this is where the question arose. Why isn't this 16 beats? And then you've got a measure that's got a lot more than 16 beats in it. It is not the only, the answer is this, it's not the only note in the measure. So it is a 4 beat because you have all these other notes, and the total measure is 16 beats, but you can't go over 16 beats because that is what the key signature says. The time signature says. So this would be 4 beats, like a normal whole note would normally be. So 4, if you count it, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and then this is a 2-beat rest, bringing it to 16 beats. So if it's the only note in the measure, then a whole note is going to have what the key signature, I keep saying key signature, I mean the time signature, what the time signature says it's going to be. If you get a very, very long measure and there's more than 1 note, then it may not be the full measure or the full timing of the measure because you have all those other notes to account for, but the total measure won't be over 16 beats. So the thing is, if it's the only note in the measure, then a whole note is going to get the full time that the time signature allows. But if it is in with a group of notes, then it may not get that full amount. But as long as it's whole and it's in a measure by itself, it will get the timing that the time signature says it will get. So that answers kind of that question. So if you do have questions, make sure you email me and I'll get the answer to you. Now I want to put up some charts here. Music is a language. And we read symbols for a language. If you take a language, how do you read? Well, you read the words, and you have the letters and you have the numbers, and all of that are symbols, and you read that. Also, when you're reading, or when you're talking as well, you phrase things. You just don't act like a robot and say the same thing over and over again, never stopping, with no inflection. You have inflection, you have a certain amount of expression. You can talk louder, you can talk softer, you can talk faster, you can talk slower, you can be angry, you can be quiet, you can whisper. So there's all kinds of ways that we talk. And when we read, the words that are written in a book is the same way. They're phrased. Sentences belong together. Then you have a period, and then you have a new sentence. And they're all phrased. And so that's important for you to remember that, because if you're playing music, you're not just playing note after note after note after note, and then you stop when the song is done. You raise the tone, you lower the tone, you raise the pitch, you make your notes extended. Sometimes you play loud, sometimes you play soft, but you have to know when to do what. And so you have symbols and you have ways of finding that out. So what I want to do today is show you the symbols that you have in music that makes music readable. And the expression that you get is, can you read music? Or I'm reading music, because that's basically what you're doing. You read the symbols as if they were symbols in a book. So I want to go over some of the most prominent of the symbols that you will get when you are playing a piece of music, and you look at them and you know what they mean. Even the key signature is a symbol. It tells you how many sharps or how many flats you have in a piece. The time signature is a symbol. It tells you how many beats to the measure and what kind of a note gets one beat. And you have all these signs. When do you go loud? When do you go soft? When do you go faster? When do you go slower? When do you retard? When do you accelerate? And that is what music makes music beautiful, is the expression of music. It's not just playing the notes. And while I think of it, you can change key signature and time signature any time during a song. You might be playing a song and one line changes the key, maybe for just 2 or 3 measures. And that's all right, then it goes back to the original key. A composer is free to do any kind of time signature changes or key signature changes at any time during the music. You, as a person who's playing the music, have to learn how to read them, and then it will be placed in the music in such a way that you can notice it, you can see it. So let's use the charts again, and I'll take this off. And we'll do something with dynamics first. This is the expression. Dynamics is the expression. It has to do with loud and it has to do with soft. If you see a symbol like this, sometimes coming to a point, usually coming to a point, and it goes up and out, you know, so there's a space, that you start off the music soft and then you gradually increase the loudness. And when you're at this point, then you play it the loudest that it's going to get. Now, there are some other symbols, too, that will tell you how loud is loud. If you're here, if you see this, then you're already playing it fairly loud, and you gradually bring it to the point, not immediately, but gradually, and so it's going from loud to soft. This is going from soft to loud, and this is very, very common to see on music. Then, of course, you have some numbers and letters. Here's a P, that means soft. Piano. P stands for piano, which means soft in music. You have a double P, that's even softer still. You have a triple P, that's very soft, called pianissimo. That's how you pronounce it, pianissimo. Pianissimo means soft. If you have an F, that's loud. A double F is louder still. A triple F is very loud. That's fortissimo, okay? Pianissimo, soft, fortissimo, loud. And it's not unusual to have those letters along with the symbols here for loud and soft, although you can read this without the lettering. Sometimes if there's not a lot of space in the music, they'll just put F, double F, or triple F, or P, double P, triple P. Now, if you see a word like cresc, that means crescendo. And what that means is that you're gradually getting louder. They can use that as well. You gradually increase your loudness. Now, if you want to go softer, then that's called the decrescendo. They can write that out. D-E-C-R-E period, and crescendo, C-R-E-S-C period. They oftentimes abbreviate them. Now, if you're looking here, I don't know how much you can see of this. This is 4/4 time. This is not a real song. I just threw some notes in. And we start off with a double P, that's piano, and you're gradually going to increase and become triple F, which is fortissimo, and then go back down to piano again. So you're raising your loudness and then getting it soft again. And then back to loud, down to soft. And down by the time you get here, it's triple P, pianissimo, very soft. So these are expressions that you get in music and symbols that you get. Now what about faster and slower? Accelerando means go faster. A tempo means to go back to the original speed. Supposing that you're playing a piece and all of a sudden you're getting it faster and faster because the music tells you to. You know, the word accelerando is there, and you know you have to go faster and faster. Then you want to go back to the original speed of the music. Maybe you had a section of the music that was fast, and then it goes back to being slow again. So when you get the name a tempo, that means go back to the original tempo. So now it's at a whatever the original tempo was. So you go faster, and then you may take it back to maybe a slow pace. Whatever the original tempo was, you bring it back. That's a tempo. This little thing, R-I-T, stands for retard. Retard means to slow down. Usually not immediately, but a little bit slower and a little bit slower. It depends upon how the music is written, and you can generally tell when you read the music how fast you've got to slow down, how much time you have. And here we have a key signature and a time signature. We've been working with this anyway, so you'll be totally familiar with this. Here's your treble clef. That tells you that you're going to be playing in the treble clef, not the bass notes. 4/4 time, which is very common. 4 beats to a measure, and a quarter note gets 1 beat. And then you have this little thing here. It looks like a tic-tac-toe kind of thing. This is a sharp sign. So I know, that now this piece is in the key of G, because the key of G has 1 sharp. If it had 2 sharps, the C sharp would be sharped, and then it would be in the key of D. Now I'm going to show you as time goes on how you figure all of that out. It's not as hard as you think. But 4/4 time in the key of G. Now you need to know that before you start playing the music, because if you don't, you're going to get it all messed up. You're going to be playing wrong notes because you didn't bother to check to see what key it was in. That means every time I play an F, this is the F sharp right here. The high F is on that line. Every time I play an F, no matter how high or low it is, would be a high F if I had the note here, and this is the low F, but it goes for both of them. I have to sharp that note because it's in the key signature, and because the F is being sharped, every time I hit an F, then I have to sharp it. Now, there might be sharps that are not in the key signature, and I'm looking right here at this G sharp. This note has to be sharp because we put the symbol right before it. And this is called an accidental. It's called an accidental because it's not in the key signature. If I put a G sharp in the key signature, I would not have to mark it here. But according to the key that it's in, I wouldn't do that. So every F automatically gets sharp because it's in the key signature. Anything that is not in the key signature, you have to mark it if you want it sharp to flat right before the note itself, and that becomes what's known as an accidental. Notice these two lines here. You accent those notes. That's all those accent marks mean. You give it a little extra punch when you play it. Notice this little apostrophe looking thing. That's a breath mark. That's where it's handy for you to take a breath. A lot of pieces of music do not have a breath mark, and the reason is when you learn to play, you know when it's good to breathe and when it's not good to breathe. You just kind of learn that. A phrase is 4 measures, so you try to hold the 4 measures without taking a breath. But if you need to take a breath, you do it. This just shows you a handy place to breathe. Now we have another breath mark right there, a retard right here, so it's going to start to go slower. We're retarding it, and we're retarding it. We're going to continue to retard it and make it slower and slower. But with soft, we're going to bring it up to F, which means we're going to end, and it's going to be loud. And then you have these little hashtags here. That's a cutoff. When you play this last note for 4 beats, you don't hold it. When the 4 beats is done, you just cut it off, and that's a reminder that's a cutoff. Here's another accent mark. These 2 little carrot-like things. And if you look at this line here, we have 4 eighth notes, and they're all accented. These 2 are played regular, but they're not accented. Here's a breath mark. These are all accented, once again, eighth notes. Here's another breath mark, and then you retard and make it slower toward the end, and then you can breathe before that last note. Now, I hope this starts to make sense to you, because once you understand this, it's not that hard to read music. It actually isn't, but you just have to know what the symbols mean. Now, I've got here different types of rests. I'm going to just I'll pull this off a little bit. There are some pages I didn't need to show you, so I kind of clipped them together. This is an eighth rest. It's got a slash, and this would be like a flag. This would be a 16th rest. A 16th note has 2 flags on it, so the rest also has 2 flags on it. The 32nd note we're not going to get into in this class, but it would have 3 flags, and the note itself would have 3 flags, and the 64th would have 4 flags, and the 64th note does have 4 flags on it. This is a 1-beat rest. So usually what we are doing would be an 8th beat rest or a quarter rest. That's a 1-beat rest or a quarter rest, and occasionally a 16th rest. These 2 we normally wouldn't do. A whole note is just a whole note. It's just a circle with no coloring, and it's usually, if it's going to have the timing of the measure, it'll be clear and it'll be the only note in that measure. This is a half note. This is usually worth 2 beats, or half what the whole is, and then this would be the quarter note. No, this is a half note, but I did it with a stem down. It doesn't matter whether you have your stems up or you have your stems down, but if you are writing on the staff and the note is higher up on the staff, usually you put the stem down on the left-hand side. If it's a lower note, you put the stem up on the right-hand side. Here's your 8th note, the 1 flag. Here's your 16th note, the 2 flags. Here's your 32nd note. We're not going to be using it, but you may as well recognize it when you see it. That's a 32nd note, 3 flag. 64th note, 4 flags, okay? Now, here would be the 32nd note, two notes tied together. If you're doing eighth notes and you need to have a flag for each eighth note because eighth notes have one flag, you can put several eighth notes together and then draw a line connecting them, and that line acts as the flag for both notes. Here we have two lines, and so this would be a 16th, two 16th notes, but they're tied together, but these would be like two flags. It would be the equivalent of this right here. Then you have the 32nd with the 3 flags and the 64th with the 4 flags. So I just want you to get to recognize this when you see it, so you will recognize it. Now, let's just put this on. Now, this is just a quarter note. A quarter note stems down. This one is a stem down and a stem up. That means you could play it as a bass note or as a treble note. You can play it in either direction. You don't usually see it on an A, but I did put it on an A. Quarter, quarter. These are all eighth notes, and they're all tied together. 4 eighth notes are all together with that one line. That one line acts as that one flag for all of them. And I have it with the stems down here. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make any difference in terms of the value of the note. You can write it any way that's most convenient. Here the stems are down. It's not unusual to have 2 eighth notes tied together. This is a single eighth, a single eighth. These are 4 eighths. That one line ties them all together, but it's a flag for all of those eighth notes, and so is this. And you can write them. I mean, they don't have to even be close together. This is an E, and this is an E. That's an octave apart, but I can still put them together as 2 eighth notes with one flag between them. Now, this would be your middle C. If we can just jump down to this for a moment, this is your middle C. How do I know that? This C has a line in it right across, and that means this is a middle C. It goes below the staff by only one line. This would be the top note of the bass clef, and it would be the bottom note of the treble clef. I'll write out some music so you can see that as time goes by, but it can be a top bass note or a low treble note, either way. This is an A. It's above the staff. It has one single line in it. This is a D, and it has 2 lines. I'm sorry, yeah, this is a C. This C can go either way. You can play it as the treble clef, you can play it in the bass clef. And so this gives you some kind of an idea. The rest are counted just like the notes are. The whole rest, if you count the staff, when you go to the staff, you count the lines of the staff from the bottom up. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That little rectangle on top that hangs down from the 4th line is a whole rest. It's a 4-beat rest. The little rectangle going up from the 3rd line, that's a half a beat. That would be a 2-beat rest. Then you have your quarter, your 8th, your 16th, and so forth that have gone along. Now, dotted rest. You can have dotted rest just like you can have dotted notes. A dot beside a rest or a dot between a note it just indicates that you add 1/2 of the value of the rest or the note to itself. Like if you have a dotted quarter, you add an 1/8 to the value of the note because it's half the value of the note, and the quarter is 1 beat, and the 1/8 would be just half of it, so you make the note a little longer. Well, I can see we're running out of time, so I'm going to close it here, and we're going to continue until this is done, because I think it's important that you understand the symbols that you see. It'll help make you a better player, a more expressive player, and you'll be a lot happier being having an understanding of what your music is really about. So we'll close it here. Please join me next time.